Hollywood doesn't collapse overnight. It consolidates, protects, and silences. And at the center of this storm sits Ari Emanuel, the ruthless power broker behind WME William Morris Endeavor, a talent empire so deeply embedded that it doesn't just represent celebrities. It controls access, frames narratives, and decides winners and losers. This is a power structure story involving Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and Justin Baldoni, where financial incentives, agency loyalty, and crisis PR collide with a very real lawsuit. When unsealed texts, court evidence, and depositions contradict what the mainstream media keeps pushing, the question becomes obvious. Who's really shaping the story and why? Follow the money and you find agency commissions, multi-million-dollar salaries, and a system that rewards silence. Follow the influence and you run straight into media control, access journalism, and outlets too afraid to challenge WME's dominance. And hovering in the background is something darker: Epstein Files, elite social circles, and the uncomfortable reality of power proximity in Hollywood's upper tier. This isn't about sides. It's about who holds leverage, who enforces narratives, and why in this industry no one leaves clean. At the center of modern Hollywood power sits Ari Emanuel, not as a public-facing celebrity, but as an architect of influence. Through WME William Morris Endeavor, and its connected entities like Endeavor and IMG, a single agency structure has expanded far beyond talent representation into something closer to an ecosystem. Actors, writers, directors, athletes, commentators, authors, and even media personalities now move through the same gatekeeping system. This consolidation matters because agency dominance reshapes how decisions are made long before audiences ever see a film, a headline, or a narrative take hold. When representation, production, financing, and distribution orbit the same power center, the result is not competition, it's market consolidation. That consolidation creates leverage over studios, over media outlets, and over careers. WME doesn't just negotiate contracts, controls access, packages talent. It influences which projects are greenlit and which quietly disappear. With backing from private equity firms like Silver Lake, that influence is reinforced by capital, allowing the agency to absorb risk, apply pressure, and wait out resistance. This is how Hollywood power structures are maintained, not through public statements, but through quiet alignment of money and opportunity. The concern raised repeatedly across the industry isn't individual behavior, it's structural power. When an agency can act simultaneously as representative, producer, and strategic partner, it blurs ethical lines. The WGA disputes over agency practices weren't about personality conflicts. They were about the imbalance created when one entity can dictate financial outcomes while claiming neutrality. This is where industry gatekeeping becomes visible. Studios depend on agencies for talent. Media outlets depend on agencies for access. Journalists know that crossing the wrong line can mean losing interviews, exclusives, or entire talent pools. The enforcement mechanism is subtle but effective. Access journalism, quiet pressure, and the understanding that cooperation is rewarded while resistance is remembered. In this environment, power doesn't need to announce itself. It operates through proximity, relationships, and long-term leverage. And when controversy surfaces around high-value clients, the system doesn't panic. It closes ranks. Not out of loyalty, but out of self-preservation. Because when a structure this consolidated is challenged, it doesn't respond emotionally. It responds strategically. When influence alone doesn't explain alignment, money usually does. In this case, the financial structure surrounding WME, William Morris Endeavor, Blake Lively, and Ryan Reynolds provides critical context for why loyalty hardens so quickly and so publicly. Agency relationships are not emotional. They are contractual, incentive-driven, and measured in percentages. Under standard agency agreements, WME earns commissions not just on base salaries, but on back-end participation, bonuses, and performance incentives. Court records and invoices reveal that from Blake Lively's deal alone, the agency collected roughly $187,000 in commission from her initial compensation, followed by another $120,000 from bonuses, totaling close to a $300,000 agency take. That figure exists independent of publicity risk, reputational fallout, or controversy. Now compare that to Justin Baldoni. His compensation as an actor on the same project reportedly sat around $300,000 total. meaning WME's commission exposure was closer to $30,000. The disparity is not marginal, it is structural. Agencies optimize for high-value clients because their revenue model depends on it. This is not favoritism, it is financial gravity. The scale becomes even clearer when Ryan Reynolds enters the equation. With reported salaries reaching $30 million per film, a standard 10% commission translates into $3 million in agency fees. At that level, loyalty is no longer symbolic. It becomes a business necessity. Losing a client of that magnitude doesn't just hurt quarterly numbers. It destabilizes internal projections, investor confidence, and long-term strategy. This is where profit-driven loyalty intersects with decision-making. When conflict arises, agencies don't ask who is right. They assess exposure, upside, and risk containment. The math doesn't require malice. It requires alignment. And alignment naturally flows toward the clients whose careers generate sustained revenue at scale. Understanding this framework reframes later actions. Support statements, strategic silence, and internal coordination begin to look less like moral judgments and more like asset protection. In an industry where agencies answer to partners, private equity stakeholders, and long-term growth models, neutrality is rarely an option. This doesn't imply conspiracy. It reveals incentive. And once incentive is clear, outcomes stop feeling confusing. They feel predictable. In Hollywood's financial ecosystem, loyalty follows money, and money determines which relationships are defended when pressure arrives. As the situation escalated, the center of gravity shifted from internal disagreement to formal legal conflict. Once a lawsuit enters the picture, the dynamics change. Positions harden, documentation matters, and actions are no longer evaluated in hindsight, but against court evidence, filings, and unsealed records. This is where the public narrative often diverges from the legal one. The release of unsealed text messages and reference depositions revealed conversations that were never intended for public scrutiny. These records didn't emerge through leaks or speculation. They surfaced through legal process. That distinction is critical because it places the conflict within procedural rules rather than public opinion. The evidence became part of the court record, not a media cycle. Within those exchanges, discussions about crisis management, messaging strategy, and coordination appear alongside expressions of frustration and urgency. That overlap illustrates how quickly legal disputes can merge with reputation management when high-profile figures are involved. The goal shifts from resolution to containment, minimizing exposure, shaping interpretation, and preventing escalation. This is where defendant versus plaintiff roles matter. One side initiates legal action, the other responds within constraints. The responding party does not control timing, disclosure, or scope. Every submission becomes reactive by nature. This asymmetry is often lost in public framing, where both sides are treated as equal participants in a narrative battle rather than unequal actors in a legal process. As pressure builds, NDAs, settlement discussions, and legal threats become standard tools. These mechanisms are not admissions, they are strategies. Their purpose is to limit uncertainty, reduce reputational risk, and narrow the range of outcomes. In high-stakes cases, legal strategy and public messaging frequently move in parallel, even when officially separated. What complicates matters further is the involvement of crisis PR teams operating alongside legal counsel. Lawyers focus on admissibility and procedure. Publicists focus on perception and momentum. When those tracks intersect, the result can feel coordinated, even if each move is defensible in isolation. The appearance of alignment becomes almost inevitable. This phase of the conflict highlights a recurring pattern. Once legal documentation becomes public, the conversation is no longer about intent. It becomes about interpretation. An interpretation in an ecosystem shaped by access, influence, and leverage is rarely neutral. The legal process moves slowly. Public response moves fast. Navigating both simultaneously is where power structures are most visible. As scrutiny widens, attention inevitably shifts from immediate disputes to the broader environments in which power circulates. This is where Jeffrey Epstein, the Epstein Files, and documented elite social circles enter the discussion, not as accusations by association, but as context for how influence operates at the highest levels. In industries built on relationships, proximity itself carries weight. The Epstein Files outline networks where financiers, executives, politicians, and cultural power brokers overlapped repeatedly. These were not random encounters. They were sustained social ecosystems defined by access, exclusivity, and mutual benefit. Within those circles, introductions mattered, invitations mattered, and reputational insulation was often shared. The relevance of power proximity lies in pattern recognition. When individuals consistently appear in environments where influence is exchanged informally, at private events, retreats, or closed-door gatherings, accountability becomes diffuse. Responsibility doesn't disappear. It fragments. No single interaction tells the full story, but the cumulative effect reshapes norms. In the transcript communications referenced in the Epstein Files, mentions of models, introductions, and personal concerns illustrate how vulnerable individuals could become entangled in these networks. The issue is not only behavior, it is imbalance. Wealth and status collapse boundaries that would otherwise protect people with less leverage. That imbalance is amplified when powerful figures operate within circles that historically avoided scrutiny. This context matters because Hollywood power structures do not exist in isolation. They intersect with finance, politics, and global influence. Agencies, studios, and executives operate in spaces where legal exposure is mitigated not just by lawyers, but by relationships. That insulation doesn't require coordination. It emerges organically when the same names appear across boards, charities, social events, and advisory roles. The discomfort surrounding the Epstein connection stems from this realization. Not every association implies wrongdoing, but repeated proximity raises legitimate questions about culture, tolerance, and enforcement. Who sets the boundaries? Who benefits from silence? And who bears the cost when systems prioritize preservation over transparency? When controversies arise later, this history shapes perception. Statements are weighed against past associations. Moral authority is assessed in light of earlier environments. In that sense, the Epstein context functions less as an accusation and more as a lens, one that clarifies why skepticism persists and why trust, once fractured, is difficult to restore. As conflicts intensify, attention often turns to the professionals brought in to manage fallout. These are the lawyers, publicists, and strategic operators whose role is not to determine truth, but to control damage. Names like Lisa Bloom, David Boies, Sigrid Macaulay, Gloria Allred, Leslie Sloane, and firms associated with Black Cube surface repeatedly across high-profile controversies, creating recognizable patterns rather than isolated incidents. The common thread is not ideology but function. These figures specialize in reputation management, crisis response, and narrative stabilization under pressure. Their methods vary: legal motions, media outreach, strategic silence, but the objective is consistent: reduce exposure, shift focus, and protect institutional interests. When deployed, they often operate in parallel, with legal teams addressing admissibility, while public-facing representatives handle perception. Historical context matters here. Several of these operatives have appeared in cases involving Harvey Weinstein, where private intelligence, counter-narratives, and pressure tactics were documented. The relevance is not equivalence but continuity. The same tools recur because they are effective. Once a framework proves capable of containing reputational harm, it becomes reusable across industries and disputes. Black Cube, for example, gained notoriety for intelligence-gathering practices designed to influence outcomes beyond the courtroom. Even when such firms are not directly involved, their methodologies inform broader strategy. Surveillance, background research, and indirect pressure become part of the risk management toolkit, especially when stakes are high. Public advocates like Lisa Bloom complicate the landscape further. Publicly positioned as defenders of victims, they have simultaneously advised powerful clients on minimizing damage. This dual role creates tension between messaging and action. Credibility becomes transactional, asserted through language while negotiated behind closed doors. What emerges is a system that rewards strategic alignment over consistency. The same figures can appear on opposing sides of different cases without contradiction, because their loyalty is to outcome, not narrative. In that sense, fixers don't break systems, they reveal them. Their presence signals that an issue has crossed from personal dispute into institutional risk. This layer explains why certain stories stall, why others accelerate, and why accountability feels uneven. Once professional reputation management enters the frame, the goal is no longer clarity, it is control. And control, when repeated across cases, becomes structure rather than exception. As the conflict widened, its impact extended beyond the courtroom and into the broader industry. This is where media outlets, celebrity networks, and institutional fear begin to shape outcomes. Publications like US Weekly, Page Six, and the Daily Mail became reference points, not because they uncovered facts, but because of how selectively information was framed, emphasized, or omitted. In environments dominated by powerful agencies, media compliance often emerges without explicit coordination. Outlets rely on continued access to talent, interviews, exclusives, and promotional cycles. When that access is threatened, editorial independence narrows. The result is gossip framing applied to issues that are, in reality, anchored in legal filings and documented exchanges. Complexity gets flattened. Power dynamics get softened. This pressure doesn't stop with journalists. Actors, directors, and executives watch closely and adjust behavior accordingly. Celebrity distancing becomes a form of self-protection. Silence is interpreted as neutrality, even when privately motivated by risk assessment. Few want to be pulled into public speculation, named in filings, or associated with a dispute that shows no clear exit. The mechanism is subtle but effective. Industry-wide fear doesn't require instructions, it spreads through observation. When people see what happens to those who challenge dominant narratives, restraint follows. Participation declines. Public commentary shrinks. The absence of voices becomes its own signal. This climate also explains why enforcement rarely appears overt. Agencies don't need to issue threats when access journalism already incentivizes compliance. Studios understand leverage. Outlets understand dependency. Individuals understand cost. Together, these understandings create a self-regulating system that favors stability over disruption. What's left is a narrowing public record. Stories continue, but within boundaries. Certain questions are deferred, others are reframed, and over time, repetition normalizes imbalance. The issue stops being about a single lawsuit or set of messages and becomes about how power is maintained once scrutiny arrives. By this stage, reputational damage has already spread unevenly. Some figures absorb it, others deflect it. The determining factor is rarely conduct alone. It's proximity to influence, insulation through networks, and the willingness of institutions to absorb risk on someone's behalf. This is the end state of consolidation. When power, media, and access align, fallout becomes manageable. Not because the truth is resolved, but because attention moves on. And in that transition, accountability becomes optional. What this situation ultimately exposes isn't a single dispute, it's a system. A system where Ari Emanuel, WME, William Morris Endeavor, and consolidated Hollywood power structures operate with layers of insulation built from money, media access, and institutional loyalty. When lawsuits, unsealed texts, and court evidence surface, the response isn't transparency, it's containment. Across every layer, the pattern repeats. Agency dominance, crisis PR, media compliance, and carefully managed silence. From Lively and Ryan Reynolds to studios, outlets, and executives watching from the sidelines, behavior adjusts based on proximity to power. Not outrage, not justice, risk assessment. The involvement of familiar figures, from Epstein Files and elite social circles to recurring reputation managers and legal operatives, doesn't prove conspiracy. It reveals continuity. The same structures protect the same interests, regardless of the names involved. And that's why accountability feels uneven, delayed, or absent. If you're still following this story, the real question isn't who wins. It's how influence moves, who enforces narratives, and why scrutiny fades once attention shifts. Because until those mechanisms change, these outcomes won't be rare, they'll be routine. Stay alert, stay analytical, and pay attention to who benefits when the noise dies down.